Now to the questions, and I've got quite a few already in front of me. I think we intend to finish at 4:30, an hour and a half, fine. But I will ask both the candidates and the people who are asking the questions to keep your questions short, and the candidates to stick to the point, so we can get through as many questions as possible. I want actually 4 questions on climate change and on air pollution. So, I don't know how you want to do it. There's Ed Dovey, who wants to ask a question on climate change. And Simon Thurston wants to do. So I'm going to ask Ed Dovey to ask the question, and Simon, if you want to. Simon, where are you, Simon? Yeah, if Ed starts, and then if you want to take it a bit further, see how it goes. Ed?
Can we have a word about
Can Ed be given a...
Mary, can we have a word about mobile phones being used?
Yeah.
It's difficult to hear. So can you please, because actually good courtesy is about, can we not have mobile phones?
Could all mobile phones be turned off,
or
please?
people to move out?
Because it's very distracting.
And we can record this for our own information.
And then recording can't take place. I'd be very grateful if you turn your mobile phones off. And also I'd be very, very, very grateful if you would not interrupt the people asking questions or the speakers. Thank you very much. Ed, do you want to stand up, Ed, so we can see you? Thank you.
Given that the latest scientific research indicates that we have between 8 and 12 years to take action to avoid catastrophic climate change, can you explain what effect your party's policies will have?
Simon, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that the Brent Council, Brent Council has declared a climate and ecological emergency. First, I'd like to know what you understand by that emergency. Secondly, what would your party do to tackle it? And thirdly, what will you do to help ensure that Brent Council also tackles the emergency?
Okay, now I don't know if this is quite related, although it is to do with issues of pollution and climate. There is one question about what would each of the candidates do to clean up the illegally dirty air in this constituency. I'm going to leave it to the candidates to decide how they answer all these very huge questions. William, do you want to start?
Well, I'll start. I mean, that could take the rest of the session in itself.
Do climate change and just say a couple of things on maybe air pollution.
Okay, so climate change is of course fundamental to...
Can you stand up?
Oh yeah, climate change is of course fundamental to our policy. That's... Okay, can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, right, I'll hold it there. So climate change is of course fundamental to Green Party policy. We are planning to spend more than any of the other parties. We've got programs for planting trees. We are absolutely signed up to the new Green Deal. We want to radically transform how society functions so that our electricity is created by renewable sources only. We want to ban the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles by 2030. We want to install a network of electronic feeding stations around the whole country so people can still move in some form of car, but that would be a battery-operated car. By implementing the new Green Deal, we will create millions of new jobs working in the industries that are needed to create the power sources and the other changes that will need to happen when we bring in these networks of new power generation. We're an island. We are surrounded by heavy tides and waves. We can generate a huge amount of electricity from these resources. We don't have so much sun, but even with the sun, we have had some days in the last year where the whole country's national grid has been fed purely by solar power. Fracking has got to stop. It has to be stopped immediately. It is causing immense damage to the environment. And I could go on and on and on.
Thank you, William. Give him a big clap.
Can you hear me? Yeah. It was the Liberal Democrats who introduced the Green Investment Bank when they were in coalition, and that is going to get £5 billion more to invest in the green economy. We also want to plant trees, we also want to encourage electricity, we also are against fracking. So actually, when it comes down to it, the direction that each party is on for the climate and the environment is very similar. Often it's just the timing and how quickly we can reach there. Our goals are ambitious, 2045 for net zero. Greens earlier than that, Labour a little later, earlier, Conservatives a bit later. So everybody understands that we're in a climate emergency here, and we have to work towards addressing it. And the policies that we have will help that. But we can't put a finger on the millions of jobs that are going to be created by a green economy. We can only start investing and see where that takes us. And we have the money to invest, and we will invest in the green economy. Now back to the pollution, air pollution in Brent and the climate emergency. Yes, air pollution in Brent, particularly outside schools in Brent, is horrendous. There is a no idling ordinance which is absolutely not enforced. And if I was your MP, that would be one of the first things that I would do, to make sure that the no idling ordinance was enforced. Tackling pollution, though, is a very complex issue. And what you need to do as an MP is have the convening power to bring everyone to the table, to work together to do it. You need TfL, you need the council, you need the parliamentarians as well. Because you've got to find out the traffic patterns, you've got to look at the buses, you've got to look at everything. You don't want to destroy people's economy by telling them they can't drive through your borough because they drive a diesel car. You've got to figure out a way to solve that problem, either with subsidies for people who have diesel cars or changing the routes. But this is not a simple issue. However, getting people to stop idling outside the schools in Brent, Harlesden in particular, would be a good first step.
Thank you, Deborah.
There's a lot to answer in that question. We have one of the most polluted roads in the whole of Europe coming through Brent, and that's the A406. Loads of schools are affected by that. We already reached our illegal limits in January of the year for the whole year. We are 10 years behind where we should be in terms of technology. And that's because the current government, the coalition government, didn't take it seriously and didn't do anything about improving technology around renewables. And so we cannot afford another 5 years of not doing anything about climate change, the climate change emergency. I was proud that it was the Labour Party that put forward legislation and a motion in the Houses of Parliament, and I voted for that, to declare a climate change emergency, and we managed to get that through, even though lots of MPs voted against it. The Labour government will introduce a climate and environment emergency bill. We will also introduce a Clean Air Act. The Mayor of London's also doing great work around clean air. And also our green industrial revolution is very, very well thought through. Everything around jobs and the economy, building tools, making things carbon neutral, making sure everything we do is fact checked against that so that we don't go behind. So for instance, you wouldn't have a bus that adds to the climate emergency as opposed to improving it. I'm against building a fourth runway at Heathrow because that does nothing to help our climate change. So there's loads of things that we have to think about, but ultimately you need a government that takes it seriously. And at the moment we don't have a government that takes it seriously, and that's the big block in terms of how we move forward. So there's a lot that we would do, there's a lot in our manifesto, but ultimately we need a government that takes it seriously.
Thank you to the candidates for the answers. What's missing in all of this, to my mind, is when are you going to hold to account the big corporations, the oil and gas industry, for all the pollution that they've caused over decades and all of the climate change emissions that they've done. None of the parties mention anywhere about tackling the corporations. When is all the subsidies to the oil and gas industry going to end? When is all the new investment going to stop from the banks? They've given £700 billion to the oil and gas industry to explore new sources of fossil fuel. Not only existing, but new sources. When are the corporations going to be taxed?
Thank you, John.
Does anybody want to answer?
I mean, we have said in the Labour Party that we will take into consideration the large corporations, making them responsible for a number of things. Climate change, how they affect the climate change. If they pollute the air or the water, then they'll be responsible for cleaning it up. So we've already put that in part of, I think that might be in the economy section, but there'll be no large corporations that will be getting any procurement contracts, for instance, from a Labour government if they are adding to the climate emergency.
Thank you, Deborah.
In our manifesto, we are trying to hold corporations to account too. They will have to report on what they are doing and their carbon emissions, and this will be taken into account for their contracts too. So it's a fairly similar approach to holding them to account. Now, taxing the companies for the fossil fuels and going after them in retrospect, I think is not going to help. I think we have to look at it going forward, and that's why we are trying to make corporations have clear goals for carbon neutral and clear goals for tackling climate.
By implementing the new Green Deal as quickly as possible, we will actually take the power away from the multinationals, the big corporations. Much as it would be wonderful to get the corporations to pay for the mess that they've done, the chances of that happening are, I would say, very slim, although it is still worth pursuing. That's really all I've got to say on this at the moment.
Thank you, William. Okay, now, Jerry.